Hello and welcome everybody to this afternoon's webinar. We're talking today about getting into music education and we're being hosted today by the Music Teachers Association. My name is Jill Davis and I'm the events and conference organiser at the MTA as we're known. We're joined today by a great panel who are going to be talking to you about the different routes of how you could get into music education. And hosting it today will be Mark Aitchison. He's the PGCE lead for Reading University, and he's also joined by Liz Walsh, who is from Teach First. We also have Catherine Barker on the call. She's the president of the Music Teachers Association and also at United Learning. And Callum and Chloe are joining us as teachers within the profession. They're going to be doing a Q&A about what they love about teaching. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Mark to take us through the session.
Hello, thank you for joining us. So as we know, there's a bit of a recruitment issue, and we just want to explain how you can get into music teaching, which in my opinion is the most exciting profession in the world. It's the profession where you get to make music every day. It's the profession where you get to watch young people grow and explore their musicianship and develop and choose what routes they want to take. And it's where you can lead people to so many different avenues of different music. So if they come to you with one idea, you can lead them to a whole world of 1,000 years of music from so many different cultures. And we get to link all those cultures and those ages together in such an exciting way. And this is our opportunity to share what we do every day with the world. So thank you for joining us. So I'm going to talk very briefly about the route that I took, which is the university route, which is kind of the old traditional route, and things have changed, and that's why we've got Liz and Catherine who are going to join us later. So the university route, you used to apply through UCAS and you don't anymore. You apply straight through the teaching portal, which we'll add on to the end of this podcast. And at university, if you come to our programme at the University of Reading, and most are very similar, you do 2 placements. You spend half the academic year in one school and a half in the other, and we purposely give you a contrast so that you can see how different teachers deliver a curriculum. You see how a curriculum might be slightly classical or traditional focused, a curriculum might be more pop and contemporary focused, and you get to see how that all works and gels together. You spend a lot of time with us at the university, and that's where we do a lot of pedagogical exploration. So we learn how to get a student and a child to play a keyboard, play a guitar, play a ukulele. Because if you're anything like me, I was first handed a violin when I was 7, and by the time I got to 20, I couldn't remember my first lesson. So I didn't know how to do it. So I needed somebody to go, here is a keyboard, here is how you start it, let's go. We do a lot of singing on my course, and because we internalize music through song, and we just explore how to do that. So in our route, there is the PGCE with QTS. So you get a postgraduate certificate in education with QTS. The QTS bit is the bit that's common amongst us all, and the PGCE is also common amongst us all. But at the university, you can opt out of the PGCE bit, which means you don't have to do the assignments, which for some people, that's a bonus, but they're level 7 master's assignments, and then you can use them and accrue them to do a top up to get a full master's in education later on if you wanted. We have at the University of Reading 2 assignments. One is very much about exploring how teachers use motivational tools, how they use that to engage students, how they use it to manage behavior, how they use praise, and a lot about how they make education inclusive, and especially music education inclusive. And then the second assignment is very much, it happens towards the end of the course, and it's where you get to explore at Reading something that you're interested in. So, for example, a student last year, a trainee teacher, explored how to get boys singing, because he was like, why aren't the boys singing? I'm going to, and he did a lot of research and read about that. Then he put together some activities, tried them in his lessons and went, oh, that's how we do it. Excellent, great. A student this year is looking at how to get year 11s better at doing rhythm and melodic dictation using Dalcroze eurythmics and Kadai singing pedagogies. So he's introduced that further down in year 9 and year 10. And the beauty of what we do and all our courses do and all the routes is that you also, as a trainee, get to inspire the mentors that you're working with. So the mentors that have worked with us at Reading, they've seen our students develop and our students go in with these ideas and have a try. And then the teacher goes, that really worked. I'm going to take something on board from you, which is a really nice thing. So it's a real partnership between you as a trainee teacher and the teacher in the classroom who's giving you the permission to look after their students. So that's the university route. And there's lots of courses up and down the country that are very suitable. And we would at Reading, and everybody does, we place students as close to where they live as possible to make it as cheap as possible and transport wise. So if you're interested in that, get in touch with your local provider. And now I shall hand over to Liz, who will talk about the Teach First route.
Fab, thank you. Can I check everyone can hear me now? Because previously we couldn't. Marvellous. Okay, as Mark and Jill said, my name is Liz Walsh and I'm the subject lead for music at Teach First. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about Teach First and also about our training route. So we're a social enterprise charity and we work to end educational inequality by working predominantly with schools in disadvantaged areas. And we do lots of work with them. We train our teachers in them. We develop leadership programs in them. We have support early career teachers in those schools. So there's lots that we do. And I think for music especially, we know it's a subject that really suffers from disadvantage. It's a subject that lots of pupils, if you can't afford piano lessons or to have piano lessons outside of school, that can sometimes be problematic. And our subject is squeezed because it's an expensive subject. So it's really great that we're able to train fabulous teachers in music to support in these schools. And we place nationally across the country. So we have trainees working as far north as Newcastle and right down to the south coast. And our trainees are placed where there is the need, but also if a trainee wants to stay in a particular geographic area, perhaps that's where family are, then we try to accommodate that as well. So what makes our training route slightly different, or actually in some ways a lot different to a PGCE or one-year PGCE, is that we offer a 2-year employment-based PGDE. So right from September, you will be in school as a teacher, working in the school that you are also training in, employed by that school, so earning as you train. The first year that you train, at the end of that first year, you get awarded QTS, so you'll have your qualified teacher status at the end of year 1. But then you stay on our programme for another year, and then you complete the PGDE, which is the postgraduate diploma in education. And just as Mark said with the PGCE, that's level 7, and you can top that up to a master's afterwards if you would like to. Similarly to the PGCE, our trainees do 2 placements. One of them, they're much more imbalanced, I suppose you could say. So the first one is in your employment school. That is where you spend most of the year. That's where you are employed. Those are the people that pay you. Those are the classes that you teach. They are your classes right from the start. And you'll spend most of the year there. But you will also do a contrasting school experience where we send you for 6 weeks-ish, depending, to a different school. And that contrast might be something like if you are working in a single-sex school to start with for most of your training, you might go to a co-ed school or something like that. Or it might be that they offer different music qualifications, it's different things. There are 3 level 7 assignments throughout the year. I say assignments, they're not all essays. One of them is a project, a little bit like Mark described for the PGCE. So our trainees work on putting an intervention in place. They spot something happening in their music classroom, like boys don't want to sing, and they explore how they can put something in place to support that. The other written assignment is a reflective assignment where our new teachers reflect on their practice and how they're improving over the year. And the final one then is a viva, or a live presentation that happens at the end of the year. And throughout the year, you get feedback on drafts of all of that work, and then the final submission happens in the summer term. And those are all marked, and all the kind of credits are awarded by our partner university. And in terms of the support that you have 3 direct support roles if you train through the Teach First route. So one of them is your mentor in school, and as Mark said, you have absolutely, you gain knowledge and experience from that mentor, but you also inspire that mentor and take your training to them and talk to them about it and get them excited. You also will have 2 what we call development leads. So those are 2 experienced practitioners, one who will visit you in school and one who observes you remotely, who are music specialists. One of them is a music specialist, and they will kind of support you in your practice, watching you, observing you, and helping you to set goals to improve across the year. In terms of what the training looks like, so we don't just kind of send you into school with no preparation and go, good luck. You have intensive training, which is 6 weeks full time, but you can also take it as a part-time. So it's a part-time option if you want to continue working through that little bit of training. And then you go into school and you start your teaching, and you cover a range of topics. You can see on the list there, we've got lots. We also look at singing, we look at informal music pedagogy, we look at musical literacy, all of these things. And that's delivered throughout the year, and that's through a blended route. So you do some self-study on our online platform, some online seminars, and then we have some in-person training days as well, which are ace. They're loads of fun. We get together, we sing, we play music, we do analysis through performance, we practice questioning, we do team planning. They're really, really good days. We also have cake as well, which seems to help. And then at the end of that first year, you then get qualified teacher status. And year 2, our focus shifts a little bit to looking particularly at inclusion as a music teacher, but the kind of structure of the year and how you train is pretty much the same, apart from that intensive training. And that's the Teach First programme. So in terms of like your eligibility, we tend to look at kind of degree level music, a minimum of a grade 5 performance and theory, but we recognise that you don't necessarily need the certificate for that. Lots of people develop up to kind of grade 8 standard and beyond without getting a piece of paper. So we look at that, and we also look at all your qualifications. So if you think, oh, I haven't taken a very traditional route through my musical training, that's fine. We assess all of those on a case-by-case basis, and it's a fab route to take for many trainees. So yeah, that's Teach First.
Catherine, who'll talk about how they do it in her academy trust. I can't speak anymore.
That's okay, Mark. And yeah, hi everyone. Really nice to be here today to talk about routes into teaching. At this point, I'll confess that I actually did Teach First myself in 2004. So I know that programme really well, and would hugely advocate for that approach into teaching, although it's massively grown since I was involved in the programme, but it's great to hear it go from strength to strength. So similarly, in United Learning, it's possible to train to teach on the job, just as in something like Teach First, and this is called a SKIT, so a school-centred initial teacher training provider. So my role in United Learning is that I'm the lead for music and performing arts across the whole trust. That means that I work in what we call school improvement, basically helping schools to get better, like curriculum and pedagogy and all sorts of things like that, working in schools on a day-to-day. But also I have worked as a subject lead for our SKIT in music and drama over the years, so I know this programme really well. And every year we always have musicians, but we also have trainees from across the subjects. And in the SKIT, it is the subjects do work very closely together in their training, and then go into the separate subjects for the more specific training. So when you're in a SKIT, you might be in a local authority or like a local area SKIT or a multi-academy trust SKIT. Interestingly, United Learning is not just academies, there are independent schools in the trust as well. So it's possible to train in either type of school, and also for second placements to be in another type of school as well. So quite a lot of difference there. And also there are primary schools within the trust. So there's always an opportunity to go and see different phases of music education as part of the training. And it's very practical. It's training on the job, it's hands-on training, and just like the others, QTS is the main qualification outcome, but there is the option to work towards a PGCE with 60 master's level credits. And for us in United Learning, our PGCE is provided through Goldsmiths University in London. Our lead school for the SKIT is Paddington Academy, which is in the west of London, and they host a lot of the in-person work, but we do have centres across the country in our SKIT. We have one in Stockport in the north, contact points. Trainees come to those particular centres depending on where they are in the country, because schools in United Learning are also across the length and breadth of the country. So a bit like Teach First, some of our trainees, they're not maybe just in London. So I've got some this year who are in Bournemouth, and I know next year I'm going to have some in Lancashire, but they will all work together at points during the year. And because it's on the job, it's salaried. Or there is an unsalaried point. So I think it's probably one of the most significant differences between a PGCE and a school-based route is that there are salaried options. And of course, that can make a big difference to lots of people, especially if you're coming from the music profession and not directly from a university, because you might have additional kind of commitments you have. And what we tend to find is that we do have a lot of career changers who come into the profession through the SKIT, because the salaried option does make that much easier. But something to keep in mind. The training itself is, as I said, led by Paddington, but all the other schools based in the SKIT are part of the training, because a lot of the training has to take place in school because it is a school-based programme. And just as with Teach First, there are various people involved in support roles. So everybody will have a mentor in their own school. There's professional mentors in school, who you're going to meet one of in a minute, later on in this webinar. And also there's a subject lead. So that's either myself, or I have another colleague who works at school in Lambeth who's also doing that role at the moment. The training is a little bit different, those Teach First, in how it's structured over the year. So there's an initial induction in a school in the summer, which tends to be around a week. And then there's a full week summer institute at Paddington Academy. And as part of that is the kind of introduction to working in schools and the principles of lesson planning and behaviour management, like all the essentials that you need in your toolkit for so you can get started from the get-go. And then work starts in September, but for many people, the timetable builds up gradually over the year. So that, again, may be some difference between other courses, that it's something where you don't necessarily start, although you're being salaried, you don't necessarily start with an absolutely full timetable. And training always takes place on a Friday in our SKIT, on a Friday afternoon. And that's either in person at one of those regional centres, or it's online. And the training is a combination of either general general education training, about particularly thinking about things like the Rosenstein principles and how we teach and deliver lessons, and think about planning, and all the things that were listed on the kind of the Teach First slide, because there's a commonality because of the way that teachers have to be trained across the country. But often what we do is we'll do 2 hours of the general training and then 1 hour of how this relates to your subject. So we see our trainees really regularly in that online forum. And then throughout the year, we have specific subject sessions that really allow us to dig deeper into the subject. And some of them are online, but many of them are in person, and they take place in London for our trust. The second year of the programme flows into the normal early career teacher provision, and many of our trainees stay on in our schools or sometimes move across to other schools in the trust. Because once you kind of come into a trust-based teacher training provision, you then have access to that wider network of schools and our wider curriculum offer, and all the kind of opportunities for progression and what it's like to be in part of a family of schools. So yeah, that's what a SKIT, or what particularly the United Teaching SKIT, is all about. And after the webinar, we'll share a link to that. We are still recruiting for September 2023, so it is not too late to get in touch if you're interested in this training route.
Thank you, Catherine. It's really helpful, I think, to hear how the three courses, the three routes, are very different and yet very similar, because we all have to meet government requirements and teacher standards. We have to make sure that we're equipping all our trainees with the teacher standards, and there's 8 of them. So we all make sure we do that, and throughout it's as if it's one thing, but the route you choose has to suit your lifestyle and your commitments, because a traditional route at university is not salaried. There's currently no bursary, and a lot of our trainees are just finishing their undergraduate course. They're going to live at home, and then they do a PGCE while living at home, and then off they go into their career, which is one way to do it. And that's the route I did, but everybody's got to make their own choices, which is excellent. And that leads me on to our next 2 guests, which are Callum and Chloe. Both are teachers, and the way this part of the webinar will work is I'm just going to ask them some questions, and then we'll go into a nice conversation. So if either Catherine, Liz, or Jill want to chip in if they hear something really interesting, please do, and we'll dig deeper into how Callum and Chloe came to be where they are. So I'll ask this as a general question. Why did you decide to come into music teaching? Who wants to go first? Go on then, Chloe.
So I decided to go into music teaching. I was influenced by my own teachers and my own teaching experience. So I was really lucky to have really good music teachers who inspired me to want to do that myself. I love music, and in music teaching, that's what you get to do all day, every day. So it was an obvious choice to continue making music all the time, really, for me.
Excellent, excellent. Callum, you're nodding your head there, not shaking it, nodding your head there. So is that your experience as well?
Yeah, I think for me it was more sort of, I got really good at doing sort of musical direction and shows, and leading of ensembles, in later kind of sixth form years myself, and then when I went to university, and it just kind of seemed like the natural thing, making a profession out of the thing that was really enjoyable, leading all these ensembles. And I thought, as you said at the start, Mark, what better way to make a living than doing that in a classroom 5 times a day.
Yeah. I often say that I get paid to do my hobby, and then feel that that's maybe a bit disingenuous, but it's true. So what is your musical background, Callum? If you've done that ensemble leading, what sort of route did you take?
Yeah, I mean, I became really involved with music through this kind of Amdram musical theatre side of things. I was cast as Oliver when I was about 6 or 7 in a thing. And I remember even at that age thinking, well, that's really cool, that pianist guy, he's pretty awesome. And then I sat on it for a few years, and then when I went to secondary school, actually that's when I kind of discovered the music department and the corridor of Perry teachers and everything that was going on there. And that's when I really got into piano, and that facilitated the MD side of work. Excellent. So yeah, I made musical theatre, and then later into jazz and kind of vocal direction.
Nice. Interesting. Chloe, was yours similar or a contrast, or?
Slightly different. So I was when I was in primary school, they had the music service come in and show us all these different instruments, and I was like, well, I want to do something, but I don't really know what to pick. and then I found the saxophone, and that was me for forevermore. So I went through the traditional graded route with all the music service, doing all the different ensembles. Dabbled in a bit of Amdram as well myself, enjoyed that, and pit orchestra, that sort of thing. But that was really mainly my roots, saxophone, and then various different woodwinds, various different groups, just dipping my toe in every other musical opportunity I could get, really, throughout secondary school.
Nice. And what undergrad course did you do, Chloe, if we can ask that?
So I then went to do straight music, which was a classical course, but also allowed you to dip into music technology and pop, which is why I chose that course. I went to Huddersfield University, and that allowed me to then go to lots of different avenues, because my interest in music isn't very focused. I like to do a bit of everything. So that allowed me to do that, which I really enjoyed, dipping my toe in different things.
Awesome. Callum, what did you do at university?
So I did my undergrad at Southampton, and that course was structured. It's similar to what it sounds like Chloe's course was. I mean, the first year I remember being very structured in terms of genre and a set syllabus of what you had to do, and then second year we could specialize, and I focused mainly on. I think I did a majoring in composition and performance. So the two majors together.
Yeah, Liz, did you have a question?
It was kind of a question and also kind of a thought based on what Chloe and Callum have said, actually. And that was one of the things Chloe, I'm a bit like you. I'm also a saxophonist, but I always said I'm like a jack of all instruments and a master of none. Like, I'm not amazing at one instrument, but I picked up lots of different things and went in lots of different directions. And I found that really helped with my teaching when I was a classroom music teacher. Is that something that you have both experienced, that the more strings you've added to your bow as a musician, the more you've been able to bring out in your practice?
Yeah, it's definitely that's actually one of my favorite things about being a music teacher. So when I started doing music, I could, or at least teaching, I could play the saxophone. I had some skills on piano, and a few of the woodwinds. But being in the classroom, you do everything. So recently, like, what I've done every single year is try a different instrument. So last year was the year of the drums, which I really loved doing. And before that was the year of the bass guitar. So that's what I've absolutely loved being able to do, having a go at different instruments and getting better myself and with the kids. That's what I really, really love. It's like a playground of musical instruments for me.
I love that, playground of musical instruments. I'm going to put that on my door. Callum, have you learned anything new?
Yeah, I mean, one of my biggest realizations was actually during the training year, and I went to the first placement school, and they said, "Great, well, our first year 7 topic is about ukuleles. So here you go, here's ukuleles. You're teaching it tomorrow, kind of thing." And I remember just going, "Whoa, okay." I went home, I did some multi-tracking, Logic stuff, back into comfort zone of Billie Jean on the ukulele, and then there we had a scheme of work. So yeah, it does kind of hit you, I suppose, sometimes, doesn't it? You go, "Whoa, I've got to do that." Okay. I think it's quite humbling, actually, to break it down into that kind of child-size step of picking up those new things. And it's so important, isn't it, to keep that in mind, how the students are learning things in incremental bits,
Yeah, and I think I think definitely for me, and I think talking to Catherine in the past, that's the most exciting thing about our job, is that every day something new happens. And who knew that I would have to teach grime when I was, back in the 1990s, and nobody knew what it was, really. And I've had to learn the ukulele. Ukulele I can deal with because it's only got 4 strings. Guitar, not a chance, because 6 flummoxes me all of the time. So hats off to guitarists. How then do you think your musicianship has developed since you've become a music teacher? Do you think it's much broader than it used to be, or could have been had you not gone into music teaching?
Sorry. Most definitely. I think that from teaching it, I'm learning myself. So especially when you're going up into the year 12s and 13s, revising harmony myself to then teach it to them. And I think as well, just the things that you don't use every day, when you're, especially Key Stage 3, you're teaching about lots of different genres all the time, and dipping into those again and again, things that I wouldn't have known if I hadn't have become a teacher. It keeps me musically active a lot of the time, and also able to just listen to a lot of new music. The kids introduce me to music all the time as well, which I love. So yeah, no, I really enjoy having the opportunity to find a lot of new music and revise my own music knowledge as well.
Yeah. Callum, would you agree with that?
Definitely. I think it's amazing what you end up doing when you're put on the spot and when you're under pressure, you know, when you're within my latest place, you know, I'm doing much more choral singing than I did ever before. And I'm finding that I can better, you know, sight sing myself. But I think it's because you're put on a hook and you're kind of next to a student and you think, oh dear, I've really got to do this properly now. And I think those little kind of areas of expertise that you develop just by being put in that position are really amazing. And you look back and you just think, wow, like I never thought I'd be able to do that. But I did, and I showed them how to do it.
Lovely, jubbly. Catherine, you're nodding a lot. Shall I ask you some of those questions? What do you
like?
Go on then. So how do you think you as a musician have changed through your teaching career?
I think a lot of what the others have said is chimes, which is why I was nodding. And I think what we do often on degree courses is really get very narrow and very specialised. And then actually going back into school, actually felt like I went back to the kind of musician that I was when I was younger. And you're just constantly professionally curious, I think, which is a really it's a really stimulating type of job to do. You know, I've been doing this for quite a long time, nearly 20 years. And like you said, every year I learn new things about music and about myself musically as well. And I think which was always been really particularly exciting to me throughout my career is all that the kind of creative agency that I had. So, for example, choosing the repertoire that we would do, not just with them in the curriculum, but also with all the ensembles and the co-curricular work, the school production and all the richness of that, and working with colleagues on that. And it's actually like a really large leadership role being a music teacher, and that's not kind of a scary thing, but it's an exciting thing, because actually you want to have all that kind of creative excitement, and that's why every day is different.
Yeah. I remember whooping loudly when I realised, after 20 years of teaching, that the choruses of reggae songs are a similar pattern to 12-bar blues. Hadn't dawned on me. And there it was. And it was a year 8 that pointed it out. And I was like, how didn't I notice that? So I've learned so much more about music in the last 25 years.
And I think learning, especially, you know, technology goes on and on and on and gets more and more exciting, all the things that we can do. And that has been particularly kind of fulfilling for me. I never really saw myself as a technologist, but have always really enjoyed that part of the job. And I think we do tend to specialise. It'd be interesting to get Callum and Chloe and Liz's reflections on this. You know, you find your groove at where you are in your department, but actually lots of music teachers might be working on their own in the department, which is sort of both good and bad, I suppose. You have lots of freedom, which is great, but also you do have to have you have to develop a broad skill set. I mean, what are the other views on that? What do you think, Callum?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of finding your groove, I mean, I really like that expression in terms of what we do. You do find, I mean, I've always worked in departments that have got 3 people. I'm 4 years into my teaching career, and I've always had a team around me. And I think that's been a deliberate choice when looking for jobs and making sure that there are other people in the department. But yeah, now you said that, I think you do find yourself doing something, and it's different where you are. So in my first school, I was very much I was a classroom teacher. That's what I did. I wasn't massively involved with the extracurricular. I found where I am now, it's much more kind of, I've got some clubs that I'm responsible for, but I'm also doing classroom teaching. I've also got a bit of this, and I teach a bit of the IB course, and yeah, I find that I'm quite broad in that sense, but dispersed in specialisms. But it's always changing. You get your timetable in September, and you've suddenly got a new year group or a new thing to do, and then you specialise in something else.
Yeah, Liz, what thoughts have you got so far from listening to all that? And have you changed as a musician in the last so many years?
X years, yeah. I think you do by nature. I think you not only kind of diversify as a musician in terms of genres and instruments that you perhaps pick up, but you also end up adopting a lot of hats and roles as the music teacher, and diversely, perhaps more than any other subject in the school, maybe. Because you are the music teacher, but you're also the choral conductor, you're also the person arranging the music for the band, you're also the person who becomes the de facto tech person when a PA needs to be set up for parents' evening. And you have to kind of find all the skill sets to match that. And I've always really enjoyed that. I think another thing that teaching and the freedom that we have in our curriculum allows you to do is to really bring your passions to the classroom. So one of the things that I very obscurely developed a passion for when I was at university was Colombian folk music and Colombian folk drumming. And that was something that I took into my placement school when I was a trainee and set up an extracurricular group. It was a scheme of music that I then wrote for year 7 in Key Stage 3 when I was in the classroom teaching in a head of department. And so I think the things that, yes, there will be topics and genres that you find coming up in schools a lot because they're popular or they're convenient or they're easy to get resources for. But as musicians, we have our passions and our quirks, and you can always find a way to bring that into the classroom somehow, and that's so rewarding when you can.
Excellent. Thank you, Liz. We've got such an exciting job, haven't we? I love it. I love it. So, Callum, if you could say to somebody now why they definitely should get into teaching, what would be your Twitter tweet? You know, let's make it 140 characters, bang.
Well,
I'll give the others time to think about theirs.
I'm not sure this is Twitter friendly, and it's going to be friendly for the YouTube. Don't worry, but it's got to be something about changing the musical knowledge, the musical understanding of the young people that we're working with. I think that's not very well put. It's not very well articulated, but the change that you see in them, especially when you've got them for that period of time and they've grown and developed and they can do amazing things that you can't do. They can do amazing things that they couldn't do when they started. And just to see that development and the change in the students, I think, as a result of being involved in your music curriculum, your music program is what it's all about for me.
Lovely, lovely. Liz, what's your tweet?
Oh, this is going to be more like blog post length than tweet, but I would think the thing I would say for me is the reason to be a music teacher, especially in schools, is schools are the one place where we can guarantee all pupils can have a music education, and that isn't guaranteed for every kid outside of school. So we have such a privileged opportunity to develop all pupils and individuals musically in schools, and that's really exciting.
Excellent. Catherine?
I had to be a bit careful of this one because I don't want to be underplay other subjects. But my point on this is always, in school, young people do hours of maths and hours of registration and form time, but they always remember the school production and they always remember the concerts and events. Curriculum is important, but those moments, they stay with you and they really matter, make a big difference.
Excellent, excellent. Jill, I know that you're not a teacher, but you have children and you've worked with us at the MTA for such a long time. What would your tweet be about why people should join this mad, crazy profession that we all love so much?
Maybe I can have 30 seconds to think about that while I ask a question, because actually Catherine touched on something that I think is really interesting. And you talked about music technology. And I think as someone who studied music at school, studied music at university, played the French horn and the piano, for me, and then didn't go into the profession of teaching, but for me, it would feel an enormous sort of barrier that I never did music technology, and I'm old enough that it didn't exist. Everything I did was, manuscript paper. And so I would feel quite scared about the prospect of having to teach using this software that I don't understand. So I guess, a question for the three of you in terms of how you could overcome that barrier for someone who might be entering the profession in their 40s.
I'll just pick up on that quickly as part of the kind of from the training perspective, is that it's covered in, well, to an extent, in our training programs. And the benefit, I guess, of being in a schools route is that there are lots of other colleagues around you who do know what they're doing and can help. But I think that I had the same feeling about how do I work out how to do samba, even though I'd done lots of percussion. But it's one of these things you sort of pick up as you go. And luckily, so many of these programs are incredibly intuitive. So just by using it, it is actually that's part of the learning process.
I almost wish sometimes that I could be 11 again and learn music through technology, and wonder how my life would be different if I'd had the ability, because when I did composing at school, like other people of my age, if you couldn't play the piano, if you couldn't read the notes, then it was not something you could do to satisfy qualifications. But now we've got all this technology, they can do it at home, and they can come to you better than you are, and that's the scariest thing ever. But I learn from my students all of the time, and I say to them, look, you're going to know this better than me by the time you leave, because you get to play on it all the time. Treat it like Minecraft, and then off they go. Other games are available, so I'm told. But yes, so Jill, I'm going to give you another moment to think.
Okay.
So Chloe, what do you, if you met a friend and you were out chatting and they were dissatisfied with their life, and they were a brilliant musician, what would your tweet be to them to say, come on, get in this classroom, it's amazing?
Something along the lines of, it's the opportunity to shape the musicians of the future, and have a part to play in that yourself as well, is what I would say. It's a great way to be continually involved in music. A bit longer than a tweet that might be, but a great way to be continually involved in music and in shaping the musicians of the future.
Excellent, excellent. Jill, it's your turn.
I'm going to struggle to make it tweet length as well. I think there's sort of two things that I feel are really, I've been really impressed with the teachers that I've met, is just the sort of the diversity of what they seem to be juggling every single day, because many of the teachers I've met are also then musicians professionally outside of work, hosting ensembles at weekends or in choirs, playing, performing, and being very, very visible in the school as well. So I think hats off to you all in terms of how much you actually get done and what impact you're having. And I think the second thing is that my husband's also a teacher, but a science teacher, and he always says that the music department are the ones that are very much on show. If you want to be kind of the showman and you want a real role in the school, the senior leadership are all going to know who you are, because you're the person who's at the front conducting and in assemblies and putting on all of the productions and shows. So I think if you had a little bit of an extrovert character and wanted to be on show within a school and really fulfill a big role, I think a music teacher would do that. That was clearly not tweet length, but two observations.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. You can do a follow tweet. So I think that's almost it. Has anybody got any last comments they'd like to make?
I've got a question actually for Chloe and Callum. So you've both been in schools for sort of 5-ish years, something like that. So where's your career going? Like, what's the next step for you guys? What do you see in your future? Chloe?
Whatever I do, I would like to still be with the pupils in the classroom. That's my favourite part, being with the pupils and leading the ensembles, and getting to interact with them on a daily basis. I've recently also been involved with teacher training within the school, so furthering that, I think, as well, going forth with helping training future teachers as well. but I'd like to do it both really. Where I'm at the minute is quite nice. I get a chance to train the future teachers and mentor other teachers in the school, but then I also have the opportunity to be in the classroom, still do all the concerts and do all the ensembles, which is one of the best parts of the job.
Lovely.
Thanks. And to you, Callum?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very similar. I love being in the classroom, and that's kind of where I would like to stay. I think in the future, definitely progressing up to sort of head of department, director of music kind of jobs. I'm also studying part-time on an EdD course, so research-based, perhaps some university training type thing, but I'd prefer to be one of those lecturers that also has some teaching still. So that's where I am at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. That was a good question. I didn't think of that one. So to sum up then, I think that what we've had this afternoon is that teaching is one of the best professions in the world, and music teaching is the best part of that whole profession. We get to shape children's minds, we get to shape their lives, we get to take them to a place emotionally and educationally, to a place that they might not be able to get to elsewhere. They can feel satisfied, they can feel excitement about their achievements really easily, and the results of what they do is immediate in the classroom, and we have the privilege of sharing their successes on a daily basis. That's key for me. And I think that if you're interested in getting involved in music education, you can have a look at all of the websites. You can look at Teach First website. You can go on. You can find out what SKITs are around you just by searching in a Google search engine. You can look at your local university provider and see if they have PGCE courses. And there's plenty up and down the country. And the other thing you can do is contact the MTA, and they will forward your inquiry on to somebody who will be able to answer it for you. So if you've got any thoughts about wanting to learn more about this amazing profession, do get in touch with somebody that can help. We are there to help. We want to talk to you, and we want to make sure that the children coming through our schools have the best musicians stood in front of them, being musicians in the classroom, minute by minute, day by day, and making great music.
Thanks very much for that, Mark. Thank you for that. And just to wrap up, to say thank you to everybody who's joined us today, for Mark for hosting, Liz and Catherine as our panellists, and to Callum and Chloe for joining the Q&A. It's been really insightful, and hopefully if you are thinking about getting into music teaching, whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching some of the playbacks, we hope that's been helpful. Please do get involved with Music Teachers Association. We're here to help teachers, and we have a membership of over 900 teachers across the country. So we can help be your support network if you are entering the profession, and membership is completely complimentary for your training years. So definitely do get involved with the MTA as well. And on that note, thank you everybody, and I wish you a lovely afternoon. Thank you.